The school board race is extremely important. If you look at the 2022 election, Ted Budd lost New Hanover County, but 4 Republicans got elected to the school board. So at the end of the day, parents, no matter how left-wing or crazy they might be, they still don't want little Johnny or little Susie being exposed to gay pornography in their elementary school library. They might not admit it to their neighbors, they might not post about it on social media, but the results are clear that when they go to the polls, they're willing to vote for people who are going to ensure the best future for their children. So it's vitally important that we have good candidates coming up to the general election this year. The school board really led the way for the last election, I believe, and I think they will do again here in New Hanover County. So thank you all for all the candidates who are running for school board. I know it's not easy. It's a very tough job. I can barely sit through one of your all's meetings. I don't know how y'all do it, but thank you all, candidates and elected officials, for stepping up to take on that vitally important role for our community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rule Sample, who has volunteered to be our moderator for the evening. Thank you very much, Rule.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rule Sample. I am the host of the NHC GOP podcast. It's great to be here, and welcome to tonight's forum. You have a job to do tonight. On March 5th, and in the days ahead of it, you have to choose 3 candidates that are going to go ahead into the general primaries. You have to ask yourself tonight, which candidate best represents your values, and which one has the best chance of winning in the general elections. I'll be leading our discussion tonight so that you can get to know our candidates in order to make those decisions. In order to facilitate that, I would ask that you check your cell phones to make sure that they are on silent. We will be recording this for later broadcast, but it's also a huge distraction for our candidates. Candidates throughout the evening will be given 2 minutes to answer the questions put in front of them. Our timekeeper is down here, Katie Gates. She will hold up a stop and a 30 seconds to let people know. And if they go over it, she hits them with it. I do ask that you be respectful at all times of our candidates. Please feel free to applaud, but also if you disagree, please keep that to yourself. They are working very, very hard to be up here, and this is a tough forum to be. So, let me introduce our candidates. They're in the back room, they're in the green room, prepping even as we come on out. Here they come. Come on up. Aubrey Tuell, Kimberly Murphy, Nikki Bascome, Natosha Tew, and David Perry. Let's give them a big round of applause. As an encore, each one of them will be picking an instrument and back. Okay, to get started, I have names of the folks on these oversized popsicle sticks that our timekeeper will be picking. So let's start with the first one. Natosha, please, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
I usually don't need a microphone, but I guess it wouldn't hurt tonight. My name is Natosha Tew. I'm running for the New Hanover County School Board. I'm running to end woke education, to make sure parents' rights are enforced, and to bring America First education to our students. I'm going to start with the ending woke education by firing Faust and Faison. They have to go, period, right off the bat. I would slowly dismantle, quickly I would say, but I recognize it's going to be a slow process of pulling out all the DEI that's in our curriculum and our teacher training, administrative training, It's saturated at all levels of government, so I know it's a big job that we'll have to undertake, but I will work hard on that. Enforcing parents' rights. We need to actually get some teeth into that. We need a policy in place. It doesn't need to wait anymore. It's just waiting for something to be done. I will be that voice to help back up our most conservative voice on there to get it done. And in bringing America First education to our students, I think every student in America should understand, respect, and be able to recite, if not all of it, at least majority of our United States Constitution and our Bill of Rights. There needs to be constitutional literacy, period. If they're aware of that our God-given rights, if they truly have constitutional literacy, we will never be in a position like we are in today. And that is my goal. Thank you.
Next is David.
Just pass the mic. Good evening. My name is David Perry, and I'm a constitutional conservative. Listen, as a grandfather, I am very concerned with what our schools are not teaching. And as an IT professional for almost the last 30 years, I know that what our students are actually learning does not translate into real-world success. You know, before I went into my IT career, I spent several years pursuing my master's degree in education and working with special needs students to help them fulfill their potential. But that was the past. Today, what our schools are teaching and not teaching has seriously crippled our school system. It has made basically a lot of our students functionally illiterate in many key areas. And what has our school district done about it? They've lowered our academic standards just to cover their failure to truly educate our students. Now, a lot of you here tonight know me. You know what kind of Republican I am. And those of you who don't know me, just ask the person next to you, your friend, who I am. And they'll tell you that I am a principled constitutional conservative. They'll also tell you that I will not compromise on my principles and I will not bend my knee when push comes to shove. Our school board currently, right now, in our community needs somebody like that. And I'll just leave you with one question. I think we can all agree with that. What other candidates here tonight can say as much? My name is David Perry.
Next up is Nikki.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikki Bascome. I grew up in New Hanover County Schools. I raised 2 adult children in New Hanover County Schools. I have 2 children in New Hanover County Schools now. I'm also a staff member of New Hanover County Schools. I see what's going on. I've read through the Wit and Wisdom curriculum, and it has to go. It is not age appropriate. I worked for Smart Start of New Hanover County and did age appropriate practices. I did, oh goodness now. I did positive discipline technique trainings. I know what's appropriate for these children, and our teachers know what's appropriate for our children. I was subbing in a 3rd grade classroom just a few weeks ago, and one of the Wit and Wisdom books that they were reading, the teacher didn't feel like a couple of pages were appropriate, so she blacked them out. This is not a teacher problem. This is an admin problem. This is something that needs to start from the top, and we need to fix it now. I don't know if we will be able to pay Fast Out, but somehow we need to get a hold of that and do what is right for our children, but also for our staff. Our children and our staff are being pulled in 2 different directions. They want to do what's right. Our children don't even know what's right because they're hearing something different every day. That's what I want to do. I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the passion to do it. I know where New Hanover County Schools came from, and I know where we need to go.
Next up is Aubrey.
Is this working? Okay. Hello, everyone. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Aubrey Tuell, and I am running for the New Hanover County Board of Education. Our board is in need of an individual who has experienced firsthand the positives and negatives of our current public school system and knows where the indoctrination is hiding. Time and time again, we have elected the same type of individuals, but expected a different result, and it has continued to allow our public education system to fail our students for the past 100 years. We've elected parents, which is phenomenal, and it needed to be done. We've elected former staff, which is also phenomenal and needed to be done. But there's a voice our board is missing right now, and that is the voice of a young, strong conservative with the skills and proven success of implementing academic opportunity and accountability within our school system. We need to elect a new generation of leaders. We need to elect a new generation that can deliver results to our problems, not just speeches. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one.
Kimberly, last up.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Kimberly Murphy. I am almost a 20-year veteran of the public education school system. I started out here in New Hanover County teaching at Ashley High School in 2004 as a career and technical education teacher. And then I transitioned over into the Dean of Students, where I worked at DC Virgo Preparatory Academy. I am currently a school administrator for the Onslow County Public School System. I've been a resident of New Hanover County since 1995, so yes, I do commute. I am running for school board, and I'm running for school board for a couple of different reasons. Being in 2004 is completely different than what it is now. The curriculum has changed, and it's getting more and more difficult for students to pass subjects like mathematics. I'm in the trenches every day with the teachers and the students and the parents, and I see the struggle. The struggle is not going to change until we change something here locally, and we also need to change at the level of the state superintendent. I believe that every child can learn if they're given the appropriate tools to learn. And I don't believe that the Common Core curriculum is appropriate for all students. All students don't learn the same way. Some students need a career prep pathway, some need a career tech prep pathway, and some need college prep. One of the things that we took pride in 2008 when Mosley transitioned from Lakeside High School was the fact that we had a place for students to go to learn a skill. And I want to say that in order to continue to grow students, we need to continue to have their best interests at heart. And I'm going to close with this. Dr. Faust has disappointed this community, and it has let down our students. And I believe as a board member, he needs to go whether I'm elected or not. He does not need to be the superintendent for anybody's school system.
This next round is all about tough questions. I'm going to ask each candidate a very specific question that is actually going to probably come up in the general elections. And so it's important that they get asked here. And so again, because these are tough questions, we're going to draw names.
We'll start with Aubrey.
Speaking again so soon.
Hang on, you haven't gotten the
Okay.
question yet.
Yeah. I have a feeling I know what it's going to be.
Okay. Aubrey, you are 22 years old, and you are not out of college. How will you convince Republican voters and the general electorate that you are not too young to govern?
So on this campaign, which has already received an outpouring of support, I've heard from many individuals that it is nice and it is fresh for them to see someone who is a recent product of the public school system running for office. I understand what it's like to be a student today. I also understand a lot of what it's like to be a teacher in our public schools today. I was never a teacher, but I did serve as an assistant teacher in my high school while I was in school. The issues that our students and our teachers are facing need to be addressed. They are very vastly different than the issues that were being dealt with 20 years ago. I am young, but I do have a lot of experience. I founded UNCW's Turning Point USA chapter, where we fought against liberal indoctrination on our campus. I also interned at the Media Research Center, known as America's Media Watchdog, where we stood against liberal media bias and promoted American values. I also interned in Senator Ted Budd's office, where I worked on a wide range of policy, specifically education and immigration policies. I also don't have children yet, but I absolutely will someday, and I refuse to sit on the sidelines until our education system here in New Hanover County is excellent. I look forward to more of these conversations, but I am young, but I am absolutely prepared to do this and do have experience.
Kimberly Murphy, until recently, you were a registered Democrat. How will you convince Republican voters that you have embraced the ideals of our party?
Well, in the terms of Ronald Reagan, he didn't leave the Democratic Party left him. And when you know better, you do better. And over time, I have seen the changes that affected me and my family and just people locally. The Democratic Party has changed. It's not those days where it used to be we could go across the party lines and come up to an agreement. It's so divisive now. And one of the things that really drove my decision was the same-sex marriages. And as a born-again believer in Christ, I am a minister myself and I'm married to a pastor, I could not condone that and stand before a congregation on Sunday morning and declare what thus says the Lord. So my Christian faith drives what I do. And the Republican Party has deep roots in religion and Christendom, and that is what I believe, and that's what is going to drive my decisions and continue to drive my decisions. Now, I can't change what I did in the past. No one can. But think about this. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat at one point, and he transitioned to a Republican, and he became our president. President Trump was a Democrat, and he changed his party and became our president of the United States. So they were given an opportunity, and I just ask for your support to give me an opportunity. I can show you better than I can tell you.
Nikki Bascome, you are a longtime resident of New Hanover County. You have run nonprofit organizations, but have never run for public office. How are you qualified to run a board of education as large as New Hanover's?
When I worked for... Hello?
There you go.
So, before I worked at Smart Start, see, it's on again. It's a sign. Before I worked for Smart Start of New Hanover County, I started my own in-home childcare facility and became the first 5-star childcare facility in New Hanover County because I was told it can't be done. You're a single mom. You're in school. I can do it. Watch me. I ran a very successful in-home child care facility at that time. Ended up getting hired at Smart Start of New Hanover County before I even finished my degree because I can do it. As a volunteer coordinator for an autism nonprofit here in town for 18 years, when the director stepped down, they gave it to me. It wasn't any application process. It was, Nikki, we need you because we know you can do it. I have the passion to take care of children. I had the fiscal knowledge to run businesses. I took care of all the finances for my nonprofit until last year when I knew that I was gonna run and had to start training someone else to do it. I know what the curriculum looks like inside the school systems. I know what's age appropriate for these children. I know positive discipline techniques. I also know how to run a business and look at their finances and say, this isn't right. This is where we need to cut our budget. This is where the fat needs to stop. I am fully equipped. I'm ready, I'm prepared, and I'm passionate to be on this school board. This is what I was meant to do.
David Perry, You ran as a candidate for another party, in the Libertarian Party, which is many ways to the right of the Republican Party. If you make it through the primaries, how will you convince the general electorate that you are not too conservative to represent them?
Thank you for the question, Rule. Libertarianism sometimes gets a bad rap. It's considered liberal by people who don't know the full scope, but I consider myself a constitutional conservative and somebody like Ron Paul, a great patriot. Our freedom is very important, and what our individual freedom and what's written in our Declaration of Independence and why our government is supposed to be here to secure our rights is the reason that we are here. And it's what we need to instill in our children. And I think that that's something, you know, whether you are a Democrat or whether you're a Republican or somewhere in between, you know, everybody cares about what happens with their child. They might be apathetic the whole year out. Maybe they only go out once every 4 years to vote for president. But they care what happens with our kids in their school. They want their kids to get a solid education so that they can maximize their potential, so that they can become critical thinkers and lead a successful life. I think by getting all this diversity, equity, inclusion, and all the woke agenda out of our school system, I think that's going to ring a solid message to all of our constituents, regardless of party.
Natosha, you are the president of the local chapter of Moms for Liberty. That organization has been portrayed by the press as being far right. If you make it through the primaries, how will you convince the general electorate, especially the critical independents, that you are not too conservative to represent them?
Well, I think we all know that the media is far left, so it won't take too much to convince them of that. However, I do believe that the successes that Moms for Liberty has had over the year far outweighs any of the negative press that we've gotten. I will say I decided to launch Moms for Liberty out of a hunger to affect positive change. I wasn't ready to run 2 years ago, but I wanted to provide every support I could to the candidates, our conservative candidates that were. I launched Moms for Liberty. I've learned so much. I've met incredible people that have allowed me to grow as a person, as a mom, as an advocate, and hopefully as a school board member. I will never regret what I've done. What I've learned has far outweighs what any negative connotations that the media may portray on me. And I think if anyone really took the time to understand what we're after, and we're here to secure parent rights, the parents have every right, and they know their child best. And I say this reflects on an experience I had as a young mom, and we were traveling to Costa Rica, and Kiana was 18 months old, and they're like, do you check in the car seat or do you not check in the car seat? Do you pay for the seat or do you not? And I listened to everyone else's opinion, and what I really should have listened to is my own gut instinct. That whole situation taught me that as a mom, I know my child better than any other person in this world. And to respect that as a teacher, as an administrator, to invite that parent in, I think is the best, gives that child the best possible outcome. And I'm proud of my position as a Moms for Liberty chapter chair to advocate, to help bridge that, and to be in the way of things that don't need to be in education.
Next, we're going to go into the forum. This is going to be a discussion with all 5 candidates. We're going to cover a variety of areas. The first is that there is no question that the superintendent of schools, Dr. Charles Faust, has had an up and down relationship with the residents of New Hanover County. On one hand, we have seen a marked improvement in many of our schools led by our Republican school board. On the other hand, Dr. Faust has made troubling statements about the Constitution, race, and recently the proposed closing of Mosley in order to house refugees, a proposal that was quickly quashed due to an outcry from Republicans. Key, is Dr. Faust salvageable?
Did you say salvageable?
Salvageable.
He is not, but our school district is.
Okay?
I feel at this time, if we were to fire Faust, the fiscal responsibility would be so huge, but I think we could do it. It's going to take the whole board coming together. It's going to take our community coming together and discussing how to get him out of that seat. If we're not able to do it because of the financial burden it would put on our school district, we need to put a stranglehold on him. We need to be in everything that he is doing and comb through everything that is going on in our school district. And that's what I plan on doing.
Natosha, getting rid of Dr. Faust is not going to be easy, and it's going to have financial consequences. We are already in an $11 million shortfall, and we're going to get to the budget in a bit. What programs or employees are you willing to cut in order to get rid of Dr. Faust?
None. The hospital. There's money in the hospital fund. They need to start using that money for the education system like it's been promised, right off the bat. Honestly, I don't think it's going to cost us much to fire him because he could be fired for a cause. He could be fired for his poor response to the seclusion rooms, his poor decision-making when it comes to SOFIC solution surveying of our kids, illegal surveying, unethical surveying, hauling our kids into a different building without our knowledge. The fear of teacher retribution, that shouldn't even be allowed. Do we need to even get into the Mosley closure, how he bypassed community wishes, totally a blatant disregard of the school board's authority, fireable offense right there. Let's talk about the Constitution. That's my favorite. He's got it on public record right there. We don't need a Marxist running our schools. Fire for cause, no money out.
So Natosha is saying find the money from someplace else. A dozen other school districts here in North Carolina who are looking for a superintendent. Kimberly, if we get rid of Dr. Faust, how are we going to bridge the gap?
Bridge the gap between the board and the people?
No, if we fire Dr. Faust, you've got to have somebody running the district. How are you going to bridge that gap?
Well, it's sort of like what we did with Dr. Barkley whenever he left, whenever he exited the district. You have to go on a deep search. And the search, the person have to align with the needs of what we have right now. Right now, New Hanover County school students are damaged by some of the decisions that has been made by Dr. Faust. One of the things I was thinking about just on today is how he just said we're going to close down Mosley after all of the hard work and labor that were put in by teachers, the former principals, and the community. He had no regard of all of the work and the labor that were put into it. But he traumatized those students and traumatized those parents. They went into Christmas break thinking about this. So whomever fills in the gap for Dr. Faust has to be empathetic of pain, because this is not just going to go away. To tell someone that we're going to shut down your school in a matter of a few months and you got to find somewhere else to go to school, that is very upsetting, and that's not what New Hanover County Schools, not the county that I live, that's not what we stand for. So someone will have to bridge the gap by being empathetic, researching our community, and find out what the needs are for the students and not the needs for their own agenda.
David Perry, just a couple days ago on the morning show with Nick Craig, you said that we might not be able to get rid of Dr. Faust right away. If we can't get rid of him right away, how will you work with him to make sure that he only carries out the policies of the board and not the other agendas?
What I said, to be exact, just so, is that we need an interim and that we need to begin a search. We should have began a search when our 2022 class was first elected. I am not understanding how we extended Dr. Faust's contract. I think, and I hand it to Pat Bradford, she's had a change of heart and has learned that Mr. Faust cannot be controlled. We have some good people on our school board, good Republican people who have a strategic plan for our school district, but he's going to continue. He is uncontrollable. No matter how many rules you set down, he's just going to go around you. He is the antithesis of what we want to do on the school board. And we all have some great plans, but and things that we want to do to fix our school system, he is just going to be a thorn in our side until we get rid of him. I would try to see if we can get an interim superintendent in the meantime. And might I suggest, you know, that we could actually even ask Mr. Wildeboer if he would serve as interim superintendent. Thank you.
Aubrey Tuell. Dr. Faust is really a big issue for Republicans. He's really a big issue for non-Republicans. They just don't know it. But is he really that essential of a figure? Will getting rid of Dr. Faust, or keeping him, result in the immediate improvement in Johnny and Jane's education in their local elementary school?
I think it absolutely will result in the improvement of our children's education. We see the narrative that's being pushed by Dr. Faust, and that is DEI, Marxist education. That does not help our students. Majority of students can't read or write. I wasn't even learned cursive when I was in school. That's a shame. There's many things you have to do with cursive. Not teaching that to our students, I don't understand how that's possible. The fact is that DEI and the Marxist education that Dr. Faust advocates for does not help our students succeed and graduate as productive citizens in our society.
15 seconds or less. David Perry, fire Faust, and how are you going to afford it?
Yes, I agree with Natosha. There may be some cards here. I'm not a lawyer, but I think a lot of what she said for fireable offenses, you know, might be a matter of opinion or philosophy or educational philosophy. But maybe Mr. Davis could inform us after the meeting whether him trying to close the Mosley Academy unilaterally violated state law or not. But in either case, my understanding is that the worst that can happen is that we can get out with a $250,000 paycheck, and our kids are worth it. And there's plenty of DEI stuff we can cut to pay for that.
Natosha, you've already answered this question, but go ahead and say it again. Yes or no, fire Dr. Faust, and how are you going to afford it?
Well, absolutely. Fire Dr. Faust and Dr. Faison if I had my way. We would cover it with the money in the hospital fund left over. Honestly, I feel like that would cover it. They have plenty of offenses that could be fired for cause. How about this? 60% of our kids are not proficient at Math 1. Fireable cause.
Thank you very much. Nikki. Yes or no, fire Dr. and how are you going to afford it?
I would like to find the money to fire Faust first. If we can make it happen and not take away any of the staff that are going to be working one-on-one with our children, then let's fire Faust. Let's find the money and get rid of him.
Kimberly, yes or no, fire Faust, Dr. Faust, and how are you going to afford it?
Yes, we will fire Faust the Fauster. He's been Fausting. So it's time for the Fauster to be ousted. So, with that being said, is that I work in the school system and school administration, and I've seen the budget and how money can be shifted around. There is always a way for you to find some money. Now, getting rid of that chief of diversity, equity, inclusion position, that's a good chunk of it right there. So all you have to do is research, study the budget, and find out where you can move money where so it will not hurt the children.
Thank you. Aubrey, yes or no, fire Dr. Faust, how are you going to afford it?
Absolutely. So we can start by going to our central admin office. Those are the individuals raking in the most amount of cash. Let's start there, and I'm sure we'll be able to cover it.
There will be more questions that on Dr. Faust in particular coming from the audience, I am sure, but we're going to move on to budget questions. According to the Port City Daily, January 6, 2024, the New Hanover school system is facing at least a $10 to $11 million shortfall. That's a huge amount. And according to the same article, we have little to no reserves to cover any emergency situations. Much of this shortfall comes comes from single or one-time source programs. Natosha, how do we become reliant on such unreliable funding?
ESSER funds. Period. That's an enormous amount of money that got flooded not only into our school systems, but in the whole COVID money that got flooded into our community. And they became reliant on it. It's not going to be an easy fix on that one. There's no easy fix when it comes to the budget. But that's how it happened. Looking back, had I been in that position, had I realized the strings that were attached to that money, my first instinct would have been, excuse me, but oh no, no way. But I think parents have a right to know what strings are attached to the monies that we agree to accept for the programs that we bring into our classrooms and to our schoolhouses. So I don't know what it would look like moving forward, but as a parent, I would really like to know, hey folks, hey parents, we're considering accepting this money from the state. But if we do this, this is what it means. A little bit of maybe more transparency in what the funds, accepting of those funds look like. As a parent, I would appreciate that.
When there is no money for government programs, you make up for the shortfall by either raising taxes or cutting programs. Which programs, Aubrey, including employee hires such as teachers, bus drivers, and other support staff, are you willing to cut in order to get our financial house in order?
I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but there are about 20 people working in our HR department alone. HR jobs pay very, very well. Let's start by cutting there and the rest of central office. We cannot afford for our students' education to cut any position that has a direct impact on their academics. Any position that is student-facing and directly interacts with students on a day-to-day level will have to stay in our school system. We need to start at central office because there's a lot there that can go.
In a recent podcast, John Hinnant addressed the very real concern that our schools are overcrowded. Kimberly Murphy, how would you address the challenges of maintaining and improving school infrastructure in our district in our present financial outlook?
One of the things that anyone would know if they have dealt with project management, you forecast and you predict what the economy would look like, what the city would look like in 3 to 5 years from now. You can't wait until students start flooding into a community to be reactive rather than proactive. We knew that Wilmington was growing years ago whenever they began to talk about the bypass and began to talk about the bridge going from New Hanover to Brunswick County. We knew that the city was growing, that New Hanover County was growing. So you need to be proactive and begin to look at things before it happens. The schools are so overcrowded till they're busting out of the seams, and it's making it very difficult for teachers to teach and students to learn. You take elementary schools like Bellamy, for example, that school has been overcrowded for a while. Hargett was overcrowded, they built Ashley. Now you got to redo it again because people are moving in. So my suggestion is not to be reactive, but to forecast and get with the appropriate persons in order to establish the appropriate infrastructure that we need for this county, and we need to look at it now because it's going to grow again. Because we're growing as a community. Leland is growing, Pender County is growing. So that means the influx is coming into us. We have to be prepared for change, and right now we're not prepared for that change.
David Perry, the other way to address financial shortfalls, especially at the government level, is to raise taxes or float bonds. If it comes to that, would you ever do that? How would you justify that?
I would not raise taxes. And one of the things that I know we have a shortage of teachers, and I agree with Aubrey that we shouldn't be cutting any teacher positions. There is a lot of waste going on first, but teachers need to be our #1 fiscal priority. They are the lifeblood of our school district. There's what the well-performing teachers is what's going to make our school system eventually successful again. But that's why I've been talking to guys like Dane Scalise and John about a performance-based teacher bonus system to attract and retain quality teachers, and based off how well are your kids been doing, and have they progressed from when you got them until you get now? And I think we can pay for that through the endowment, through a long-standing grant instead of these short-term things. And I believe we have to say no to all these little piles of money. Well, I guess we've got EV buses going in now because it's free money from DEQ. We have to grab it. Oh no, we don't. We can say no, thank you. We could actually maybe use that money for science teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. According to the Chief Academic Officer of New Hanover County, the Career Readiness Program at Mosley School, which has 15 employees, was costing the district $1.3 million. Nikki, the Innovative Partnership Grant, which funds $350,000 of the program, is going away in September, putting the entire cost of the program, which only serves 62 students, on the district. Even if we do not shutter it to build a refugee center, is it wise to continue operating this school or any school or program that costs the district roughly $21,000 a year per student?
I love the program at Mosley. I do not feel like it needs to go anywhere. It needs to expand. We do need to come up with a plan to use that money. Talking about the money for Mosley and how much it costs, there was a turnaround task force meeting where they were talking about the money, and one of the things that they talked about, if anyone knows what the Arboretum is, there is a nonprofit organization within the Arboretum called the Friends of the Arboretum, and it is, even though it's a county program, Friends of the Arboretum is its fundraising arm. And at the turnaround task force meeting, they did talk about developing a Friends of the School District arm that would be a fundraising arm for our school districts and for programs like Mosley. That is something that I would like to look into. I would like to investigate a little bit more. Is it possible? Is it something that we could do? But let's reimagine Mosley. Let's not shut it down. We need those programs. We need the early childhood program. We need the career readiness. Noble Middle School sent out a notice to parents just this week saying that Mosley admins were coming to our 8th graders to talk to them and accept applications for the program. It's not going anywhere. We're going to expand it. We're going to make it successful because that's what our children need.
Thank you. To each one of you, we've talked about the budget, and we've got this big hole that we're facing. In 30 seconds, I'm going to give this to each one of you. In 30 seconds, what is your first priority that you will keep? What is your first priority that you will cut? Kimberly.
The first priority that I would keep would be a program for our special needs and our special population students. Our exceptional children go tremendously underserved. I see it every day where we're scrapping and looking for someone to be with the one-to-one students or finding someone to teach an adaptive student. I think more funneling of money needs to be going into our exceptional children and also our AIG students, which sometimes slip between the cracks because they feel like they know everything, they're smart, and they don't need that support.
Thank you. Aubrey, in 30 seconds or less, what are you going to keep and what are you going to cut first?
I think we absolutely need to keep all of the funding we have for our teachers. It is already not an insane amount, so we need to keep all of that there and make sure our teachers are funded. We need to get rid of the DEI funding in our schools. The fact that we still have a chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer blows my mind, but that absolutely needs to go. And we need to start deprioritizing the central office funding.
Thank you very much. David Perry, 30 seconds. What programs are you going to keep and what are you going to cut?
As I said, teachers need to be our number one priority, our number one fiscal priority, so absolutely don't touch them. But I do think that I am for a well-rounded liberal arts education. That means our kids should be learning the basics, science, math, English. I don't know if we need all these little specialty schools surrounding all that. I think we can consolidate there. And we talk about having a special school for Mosley Academy. Now, what happened with Mosley was, and the way it was handled was ridiculous. But back when I was in special needs, we would talk about integration. So I think we can eventually close all these specialty programs.
Thank you. Asha, same to you. In 30 seconds or less, what are you going to prioritize to keep, and when are you going to cut first?
Well, I definitely want to keep the high school, the academy, designed for our special ed kids, or special needs kids. I'd like to actually advocate for more money going into that. At the state level, there has not been a change in 30 years for money funding our special ed programs. We need to start advocating at the state level, and as of last year, 616 positions were not filled, or they were filled by someone not qualified to fill that position for our special eds kids. I think we really need to work on shoring up that hole. However, what I would cut would be Dr. Faust and Dr. Faison. End of story.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you came in tonight, you were given a card to write down a question. If you haven't turned that in, please pass that down to the aisle and somebody will walk by to get that, because we're going to be asking those questions here very shortly. We're going to move on to culture wars. Yes, ma'am. Did I not get to you? Aw. Nikki, in 30 seconds or less. Oh, well, thank you. This is my first time. Nikki, in 30 seconds or less, what programs are you going to keep, and what are you going to prioritize to cut?
One program I'd like to keep it's our ISCS. It is our intensive social communication services for our autism community. Whereas our school district has lost children to private schools and charter schools and home schools, this program has exploded. I talked to a special needs teacher on that phone yesterday for 3.5 hours. Her day consists of opening her lunch, putting it on her desk, and taking bites as she walks by. That's inappropriate. We need these teachers to have the support that they need. She doesn't even leave her classroom during the day. She is with them nonstop. And if you think about if she doesn't meet those IEPs for those children, lawsuits for our school district. So why are we not prioritizing that? That is the first prioritizing program that I will see. The one I'll get rid of, SEL, social emotional learning. That should be integrated into other things. That should be a parent's priority.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to culture wars. And there's a whole bunch of things under this heading that we're going to talk about. A heading for NEA Today, dated February 17th, 2023, and that's the publication for the National Education Association, reads, "Political attacks that target inclusive curricula and divide communities are undermining public education and its role in educating for our democracy." Aubrey, in the midst of all these controversies over diversity, equity, and inclusion, how do you propose that we return to a focus of reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and civics in school curriculum?
I think that's a really great question, and something that we need to focus on. It blows my mind that students are not proficient and can't read, write, do math. They don't know anything about civics. I can tell you the history education I received was probably not what most of y'all received, and that's really unfortunate. Had to do my own outside research on that one. Our students shouldn't have to do their own outside research to get a basic history of our country. We need to restore that type of education first. I've been trying to bridge the gap in school, on campus. It's something that I've been doing for the past few years as the president of College Republicans and the founder of our Turning Point USA chapter. We need to have conversations with each other, because unless we have true, honest, heartfelt conversations with one another, the culture wars will continue in our schools.
In Murphy, North Carolina, a female athlete at Hiawassee Dam High School suffered a concussion and spinal injuries after being spiked in the face by a biological male during a volleyball match. Nikki, how will you protect female athletes in this day and age of biological boys competing against biological girls?
They shouldn't be. Period. There should not, in our schools right now, there should not be boys in our girls' locker rooms. I'm sorry, that's how I feel. No, I'm not sorry. We should not have boys in girls' sports. I didn't fight so hard to be a female athlete to have a man take me out. We can't have that. I don't want my daughter in the bathroom with some gentleman. No. We do not. Your sex on your birth certificate should be the gender that you play sports in.
Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill that states classroom instruction personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Kimberly, how will you make sure that sex education in our schools is age appropriate?
First of all, it should be left up to the parent whether they want to opt in or not, because every parent doesn't condone their child learning about sexual education, even through high school. And I've been fortunate enough to work at both the middle school and the high school level, and they all process differently. So I would make sure that the parents are involved in that conversation, and it would be left up to them, because at the end of the day, the parent is left holding the ball, explaining the difference between the two. It's not up to the schools. I think sometimes the schools get a little bit too involved in what goes on at the house. What's at the house need to stay at the house. I went to college to be an educator. I didn't go to college to be everybody's parent. So it's not my job to raise everybody else's child. I raised mine. So we need to let parents raise theirs.
We often talk about parental rights. The Federalist Society relates the following story. When, at the impressionable age of 2, Desmond's parents began taking him to drag shows, and the toddler saw his parents cheering on the female impersonators, so the little child's future was shaped. Natosha, when we talk about parental rights, do we just mean conservative parents, all parents, or is there a line? In other words, what exactly does parental rights in education mean?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, there is a law that's being put forth where there's an age limit for any person to be attending those type of shows. If you want to take your child there or not, there's like you go to a movie. They have to be 13 or 18 and above. To me, parent rights is a fundamental right. There's nothing that can come in between it. I know as a parent, I will always have my daughter's best interest at heart. And I know her better than you and anybody in this room and anybody on the other school board and in the classroom. I can tell when she doesn't feel good and she doesn't have to say a word. I will always respect a parent's right to know what's best for their child. However, in a public place, there should be limits. Absolutely. I'm not saying there should be repercussions. There are a lot of parents out there that do not deserve the children that they have. And it's horrific. It breaks my heart to think about it, but we have to set the standard high. There has to be no middle ground. Our children are the most precious and most innocent of us, and until they're old enough, till they're 18, they're intellectually, they're just not able to comprehend what all comes along with those big adult decisions. It seems like fun and games until social media captures it forever, and they have to live with it over and over in their high school and the friends that used to be friends, and now it's all, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a battlefield in our schools. Kids I'm glad we didn't have social media then. A word taken out of context lives with them for years. I know this because my daughter lives with it. A moment of poor decision making it's affected her ever since she got into high school. So I think there's no limit to parent rights. I think the parents always have the best interest of their child at heart.
Thank you. The types of books that our kids are reading are a constant source of discussion. David Perry, classic books such as To Kill a Mockingbird, A Separate Peace, Brave New World, and others have been removed from school shelves over the years for one reason or another. How will you decide constitutes appropriate reading for our children?
Well, thank you for the question. And this is one I've done a lot of thought on because I am a firm supporter in the First Amendment, and I'm firmly against censorship. But I believe that every book should be in our public library. And if you got a problem with what your kid's reading at the public library, then you have the opportunity to go down and supervise what they're reading. But at a school library, that's a different situation. You don't have that opportunity to go down and supervise what your kid is reading. We need to be 100% sure and overly conservative that it is entirely age appropriate for that particular school library. But you also allude on another question, which should be part of a curriculum, and that is a separate issue besides what's in our school libraries. I believe when you're talking about, and it doesn't even have to do with, whether we're talking about transgender books or all these other things. It could be something as simple as, eventually, yes, I think all of our high school students need to look at a picture book that shows the atrocities that happened in Auschwitz and other places. But you don't want that book going down in a second grade or a third grade school library. It would just horrify these kids. Everything has got to be appropriate. And what's appropriate for a curriculum is a well-balanced thing. So, take the stamped book. Everybody got up about the stamped book. I don't have a problem with the stamp book being a high school curriculum as long as it's part of a balanced education. Hey, should they read Karl Marx? Absolutely, but they should also be reading Adam Smith. Thank you.
Thank you. 30-second, and I promise I won't skip you this time. 30-second, Aubrey, starting. What is the #1 big cultural war item in the New Hanover County schools, and how are you going to address it?
That's a tough question. I would say the biggest culture war going on in our schools right now, because I've been there. I was in public schools not too long ago, and I'm still on a college campus where I see the culture wars going on each and every day. It's how divided we are. We are so scared to have truth and honest conversations that we just completely divide each other and hate the other side. It's okay to disagree with the other side, but I want to know why you disagree. You should know why you disagree and why your stance, the truth, is correct.
Thank you. Nikki Bascome. What is the #1 cultural war in our schools, and how are you going to fight it?
Listening to the Turnaround Task Force, there was a comment made that low-income children are the ones that we need to focus on. I agree. I was a low-income child. I was a welfare baby growing up with a single father. But I didn't fit their norm. I'm not a different color. And that's where our cultural war is coming in today, is that they say low income and automatically they assume that it's our black children. It's all of our children that are low income.
Thank you. David Perry. What is the #1 cultural war item in our schools, and how are you going to face it?
I believe it's this critical race theory. I mean, we are lumping our kids into identity groups based off the color of their skin. I mean, it's absolutely horrible. Why can't we at least treat our kids, like Dr. King said, by the content of their character and not the color of their skin? I believe in that we are all created in God's image, and that we are equally loved by Him. And every child deserves that same individual attention and not this identity group politics.
Thank you. Natosha Tew. What is our #1 cultural war item, and how are you going to face it?
I think the #1 culture war is the woke ideology that's infected all of it seems like every bit of our culture now, from government to education to entertainment to sports, however you want to look at it. But in particular with our education, it's teaching our youth that all whites are racist and all non-whites are victims. I refuse to accept that. We're Americans. We live in the greatest country in the world. We have opportunities afforded to us that people only dream of. That's why they try to chase down an airplane leaving the ground,
Thank you very
falling
much.
to their death.
Thank you very much. Kimberly Murphy, what is the number one cultural warfare in our schools, and how are you going to fight it?
I think the number one, this kind of go hands in hand, is stereotyping and prejudiceness. Prejudice and stereotyping is a learned behavior. Children are not born prejudiced, they're not born stereotypical. And I believe that we should learn to embrace each other's differences and not clump everyone into an all category. All black people, all white people, all people who live in housing projects, all Hispanics, all Asians, because it's not true. God made us in his image. He made us in his likeness. So we don't know what color he is. All I know is that I'm made, fearfully and wonderfully made.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause for that forum. You've heard me ask questions. Now it's your turn. I'm going to hand this over, and we have questions. Some of these are going to be going to all of the candidates, and some of them are candidate specific.
Want me to choose? Yes. Okay. Okay, it's going to go in order here. Let's have David answer this question. What would you do to prevent further sexual harassment in New Hanover County schools?
We really have to get out of the notion that the kind of the southern notion of civility that can go too far sometimes. I mean, in the sexual abuse cases that were going on, we had 300 people in our school system that knew it was going on, and yet nobody said anything. And it persisted. And when it comes to sexual harassment, I believe the same thing is going to happen. We need people to speak up. We need frank conversation. And we can be polite about it, but we cannot be afraid to speak out against wrongdoing, even if we don't have all the facts. It's too important.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask that Natosha and Aubrey each answer this question. Not at the same time. We'll start with Natosha. How would you get highly sexual books out of the schools? How?
Hopefully with a new DA, that'll be a little bit easier. I believe these books should be out just because they are educationally unsuitable and pervasively vulgar. That meets the definition for them to be out of our classrooms. The only reason they remain in there is because someone doesn't have the gumption enough to follow through and get them out. There are people, and it still astounds me today that we have folks that are fighting to keep these books in our libraries. They provide no educational substance to them. When we have kids that can't even read and are not proficient at math, why don't we just stick to the basics? That would probably be a better start.
Thank you. And Aubrey, again, the question is, how would you get highly sexual books out of the schools? How?
Yeah, I agree with Natosha and look forward to hopefully working on that together. But we need to create a policy that has legal definitions like vulgar to hold our school systems accountable. Once we have a new DA, hopefully that'll be a little bit easier. But there are avenues we can explore to ensure there are policies that back up getting these books out of our schools.
Thank you. Okay, let's have Nikki answer this question. Some schools are in disrepair, such as the Mary Williams School. If elected, how will you solve the poor conditions of the schools that need attention?
First, I want to work with the county commissioners and let's start getting together and figuring out how much money we can get from them, as much money as we can possibly get. Also, I really want to investigate this Friends of the Schools that we had talked about at the turnaround task force. See if we can have community support, because I don't think raising our taxes is going to fix that. I also want to start lobbying at the state level to see if we can get more money flowing into our school district so that we can bring our schools back up to standards so that our children have a good place to learn and our staff have a great place to work.
Thank you. Okay, and let's see how I will do this. Kimberly, let me have you answer that same question. For the schools that are in disrepair, such as the Mary Williams School, how are we going to solve those poor conditions that need attention now? Go
It
ahead.
has been several years since New Hanover County has passed a bond. And I remember the bond that went for Porter's Neck Elementary School. And I think sometimes we have access to tools that we don't use. And I believe we need to pass a bond to help rectify some of the poor conditions of the schools.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is going to be a quick round. You could probably answer, each one of you can answer this question in about 15 seconds. We'll start with Aubrey and we'll go down to David. Tell us why you are a Republican.
I am a Republican because I agree I am a conservative at heart. I found my political beliefs for myself. My parents were not political at all, and I knew what was right. I learned both sides. I learned the conservative and I learned the liberal side. And ultimately, the truth will always rise to the top.
Thank you. Thank you.
I became a
Kimberly.
Republican because of my religious beliefs that I've been believing since I was a young child. My father was an evangelist. So it lines with my Christian beliefs, and that is why I'm a Republican.
Okay, thank you. Nikki, go ahead.
Being a Republican is all I've ever known. I came from a Republican family on both sides, mother and father, and when I was old enough to ask questions and be a critical thinker, and I started asking questions, I realized that the Republican way was the path that I wanted to take.
Thank you very much. Natosha, why are you a Republican?
Because I'm smart. I'm a Republican because I believe in God, I believe in the Constitution, and I believe in the free market. The less government intrusion in my life, the better. It seems like, I'm not gonna lie, I was a Dixiecrat, but I wisened up when I moved to Wilmington. I realized that in order for our country to move forward,
Thank you very much.
free market is the best.
Thank you. And David.
I've been a Republican my whole voting life. As a matter of fact, I worked in high school on Ronald Reagan's 1980 campaign, and I was there for I paid for this microphone moment. And but when I thought about it too, it's the Republican Party has always stood by what the true purpose of government is, and that's to secure our individual liberty, and that goes for our children too, and that is why I'm a Republican.
Thank you, David. Okay, so this is another quick answer question that I'd like to hear from everybody, and let's do 30 seconds or less. The time commitment to be a New Hanover County School Board member is very time-consuming. Have you considered the number of daytime meetings and all the time it takes to serve on this board? Are you prepared? Let's start with Nikki, and we'll go this way and circle back around, ending with Kimberly.
So I knew about 4 or 5 years ago during COVID that I wanted to run for the school board, but the first thing I had to do was get my life in order so that I could devote that time. So my nonprofit is now running all on its own. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I sub at the school when I want to, which I won't be able to do when I become a school board member. So I'll be free to dedicate all of my time outside of my family time to the school board and our community.
Great. Thank you very much.
What day is it?
I
don't even know. I'm losing track of them. There's so much packed in here. Yes, I'm very well aware of how busy my schedule is. I'm a mom, and I have a full-time job, and we do travel volleyball. So it's going to be a juggling balance. I've never said it won't be. But I'm up for the job. It's worth it to me. It's important for someone to be on that board, the most conservative person that we can get up there to help protect our children. So just get me there.
Thank you. David.
Yes, so I believe that I have the flexibility in my career at this point with the experience I have in software engineering, where I could take a lighter load software engineer contract position, even remote, and make it coincide with the duties of being a school board member. And also I have to balance it with the fact that I'm helping to raise my grandson Lucas. So he's going to be priority one, but the school board will be priority number 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Aubrey.
So I have one person that I'm responsible for, and that's myself, which definitely makes running a campaign and being an elected official a lot easier. I am in school right now. I go to school 2 days a week, so that's also made running a campaign a whole lot easier. Once I graduate this May, I will be pursuing my master's degree part-time. I've already spoken to a lot of the professors over there and the director of the department, and they are looking forward to seeing me succeed and working with my schedule.
Great, thank you. And Kimberly.
I have been known to work 2 jobs and complete a 400-page dissertation while raising my son and following him playing football, lacrosse, basketball, wrestling, whatever he did, MMA. So I'm used to a tight schedule, and I'm also a planner. I plan my schedule when I find out whatever dates I have to do things, and I plan around those dates, and I deal with emergencies as they come up.
Great. Thank you all for that. All right. I have a couple of questions regarding safety. And so I'll just break it up and have Natosha and David answer on a more broad level, and then have you all 3 answer the more specific question. So we'll start with you all down here. And this is a broad-based question, so let's give you a minute each, starting with Natosha and then David. The question is, how would you keep our school safe?
Safer.
Safer. Yes.
I would probably want to hire some more SROs. I've had a great experience. Although it's not something I would have asked for an experience, but thankfully we had a great SRO at our high school. He was a tremendous resource, and I hope everyone that has to have an experience with an SRO has one like I did. I feel like there's a unique opportunity for them to really connect with the children, especially for those who don't feel maybe not as comfortable going to a vice principal or a principal. They have gone to an SRO, and they've been able to provide just, to be honest, just someone to be there beside him. I've asked him when I walked Kiana into school, like, she's having a rough day. My grandmother just passed away. Can you just keep an eye on her? And he did. I think that's a tremendous resource. It's not something I really would have thought of a year ago even, but after the experiences I've had this past year, it's something I'm very grateful for. There's a lack of accountability of our kids on the campus, by the way. I don't know if you realize that. Kids leave and come as they please.
Thank you, Natosha. And David, how will you keep our schools safe?
Well, the first thing that we have to do is we need a more responsive school administration. What happened with Chance Diablo, his mother went to the school system, said, my son's being bullied, and the next thing we know, there's a shooting. This just happened in 2021. Luckily, it wasn't fatal, but it could have been a lot worse. So we have to, one of my ideas to make sure they are responsive is to set up an independent parent advocacy group, not under the supervision of the superintendent or any of the school district, that could advocate for parents. You shouldn't have to have, a money for a lawyer to get a decent response out of our school administration. And secondly, after talking to Matt Rhodes, yeah, we got real problems. We got kids, are afraid to go to the bathroom in our schools because there are gangs running around. And also talking to Matt Rhodes, we're not getting the best and brightest resource officers there from Sheriff McMahon. We need to do a far better job of screening and getting quality resource officers in our schools.
Thank you, David. So let's do Kimberly and then Nikki. It's a very similar question, and I'd like you to frame your response like these folks have done. How will you keep our schools safe? But in particular, this question addresses using the restrooms. Funny, David. The question exactly is, we hear students are afraid to use the restrooms. Because of that threat to personal safety, how can that be allowed, and what can we do to deal with that immediately? So frame your question generally, but please address the bathroom question.
Okay, unfortunately, we're living in a day and time where no one feels safe at the school. Everyone wants extra precautions. As a school leader, we monitor our restrooms frequently. We have teachers monitoring on their planning periods, and we also have administration and our SROs monitoring the bathrooms. We're fortunate to have a female and a male SRO. And so it shouldn't be to that point where you're afraid to go to the restroom, but because it is happening, we do have people in place, and that's what I would do as a member of the board to support having teachers to circulate during their planning period and have other staff members to rotate and check the bathrooms.
Thank you. Go ahead, Aubrey.
There's a lot of important things that that we could be doing to make kids feel less scared to go to the restroom. First, we need to keep track about who's going to the bathroom. Simple sign-in, sign-out sheet. They had that when I was in school. I want to address this question more broadly because there are 3 things we can be doing to improve safety in our schools. 1, hall monitors during peak hours. When violent conflict is most likely to occur, it is during a peak hour when there is no one watching. So we need hall monitors in our halls. We also need to increase our school resource officers. I had 1 full-time, but during peak hours, arrival, dismissal, and lunch, we had 3, if not 4, school resource officers on campus. We need to get there. We also need to have our teachers stand outside of the classroom during class changes. More bodies in the classroom that are an authoritative figure, violent conflict is less likely to occur.
Thank you, Aubrey. And Nikki, specifically answering the bathroom question, but any safety concerns as well. Go ahead.
First and foremost, the problem with our society right now is there's no discipline. If there are natural and logical consequences for breaking the rules and hurting other people, if you knew that you would get in trouble, or I would hope if you knew that you were going to get suspended, you were going to get arrested, something was going to happen, you're less likely to do it. We need to reenact our discipline policies, and we need to follow it.
Thank you. All right, this is a good short question as well. I think it would be beneficial to hear from everybody. So if you can take 30 seconds each, and we'll just start with you, Aubrey, and go down. 30 seconds each for this response. As a school board member, you're one of 7 board members. So how, as one of 7, do you plan to work together as a team with your other board members to make some of these changes you've outlined? Go ahead, Aubrey.
Teamwork is a very important skill, and one to say that I'm happy to have learned early on. Serving on many boards, many committees, it's taught me that nothing can get accomplished without teamwork. Sometimes you have to work across the aisle, whether it be on an issue like safety that everyone cares about. There are things that we can work together on, and we need to focus on those. We also need to work with our fellow Republicans on the board. That's how we're going to get a majority of the issues across the finish line.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I would say embrace each other's differences and remember the common goal: one band, one sound.
Good. Thank you. Nikki.
After working for a nonprofit and having over 120 volunteers, I learned to work with a diverse group of people, and we just learned to get along. We disagree, but we agree to disagree.
Thank you. Natasha, go ahead.
I'm old enough to know what civil discourse is. Let's be professional. We're all here for the same reason, to represent our community and to the best of our ability and to provide a sound education for our children. So let's put our differences aside and find our commonality and work from there.
Thank you. And David.
I'm all for finding commonality and where it can exist, and as a software engineer, I collaborate with a whole team of people on major projects like our new software system in our new Warsaw, Poland plant. But we can never sacrifice this collaboration for being able to speak out and to remain firm and true to what we stand for. And if that means bucking against other Republicans, then so be it. If it means bucking against the Democrats, which is going to happen most of the time, then so be it. We can do it civilly, but we can't have to stand up for our principles.
Thank you. So we have one more question from the audience tonight, and we can also do this in 1 minute or less, hearing from everybody. I think that's only fair. This question is from a business owner in New Hanover County, and they would like to be reassured what abilities and attitudes they can expect from a New Hanover County School graduate coming to me for a job. And the way I would frame that question to you is, what are the top 3 attributes or characteristics that you would like to see in our New Hanover County School graduates? Top 3. And so let's start with David and go the other way.
I think the goal is critical thinking skills. That's number one. We need a well-informed, well-rounded education, the science, the math, the history, the civics. All that technical education, that's great, but when they can go to community college afterwards, it's great if they know a skill, but if they don't know how to read, that's a problem. You know, so what I want to make sure is that we have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and we cannot have high school graduates that become serfs instead of well-informed citizens.
Okay. And Natasha, top 3 characteristics you would like to see in our grads.
Respect, accountability, and discipline. Those are the 3 I think they should graduate with.
Great. Nikki.
Mine would be critical thinking, the value of hard work, and basic skills, reading, writing, arithmetic.
Thank you. Kimberly, your thoughts?
A strong work ethic, self-discipline, and skills for the workforce.
And Aubrey.
I would say accountability and strong problem-solving skills, along with strong licensures and certifications to ensure our students will be productive long-term. That's provided through CTE. There's many students, ask college students today, they use their CTE certifications to go get higher paying jobs while in college and get less debt.
All right. Thank you. That concludes our audience questions.
Let's give them a hand, because those were some questions. I'm going to give our candidates just a second to get their final thoughts together. Before we do that, just a couple words of housekeeping. Is that, remember, we are in a church, so we would actually like to leave it better than when we found it. So if you have cups or crumbs or things like that, please make sure that you police your area. Also, I ask that the candidates or the candidate representatives make sure that all of your literature, including your signs, are removed. They can't stay here on church property. So make sure that you take them with you. However, I think all of the candidates, if they brought signs, would like you to take them with you if you are so moved. So let's leave this place better than what we found it tonight, folks, and I appreciate that. So you can applaud at that, that's fine. Just like before, we're going to have Katie pick the first person to close. Natasha, please give us your closing statement. You've got 2 minutes.
Well, thank you for inviting me and for having me. I ask all of you to vote for me on March 5th. I've been involved in this fight for almost 4 years now. I have no desire to be a politician. I don't want a career in this. I just want to do my part into securing our country for future generations, to preserve our schools so they're not indoctrination camps, and make this world, I want to leave this world a better place than it was when I got here. I'm just a mom, to be honest, just trying to make a difference, showing my daughter what to do. I know this country is the most amazing country in the world, and the potential of our generation, they don't even have an idea, and I want to show them what is possible for them. I don't think right now they even recognize what they can achieve. So I just want to make it possible. That's it.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for coming tonight. In closing, I want to address a couple of things that sometimes school board members have talked about, and that's called professional, bipartisan conversations and things like governing as a collective. Listen, you know as well as I do that we've had some Republicans over the last few years who have compromised their principles, and as a result, our kids are at an academic risk and sometimes even a safety risk in our schools. We need to undo this damage. We need to get rid of woke education. We need to get rid of the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. We need to get rid of CRT. And we need to get rid of the chief architect and director of this disruption, which is Superintendent Faust. We can't allow this to continue. The consequences to our community and to our students is too great. We don't have the luxury of getting along and going along just to get along. We can't allow our children to be sacrificed in the name of civility and getting along. Our children need an all-American education, and all that means. We need to rebuild our schools now, period. My name is David Perry. I would be honored to have your vote and your support, and thank you.
Yes. So you guys already know I grew up in New Hanover County Schools, so I'll say it again. I am very passionate about our school system. I feel like our teachers want our parents there. They're just embarrassed. It's hard to bring you into our schools when we don't have much control. They don't have much control over what's going on. Our parents are ready to be there. I think our greatest advocate are our parents. I want to encourage that communication between the schools and home. I want to encourage our admins to be more active in our school district. I want to help our special needs teachers. They so desperately need it. I feel like I have the passion, I have the experience. I also have the time to dedicate to our community. I have been on many, many nonprofits here in town to show that I am the candidate for you. I will speak for you. That special education teacher yesterday came to me. She sought me out and I listened, and I will be her voice. I want to be the voice of everyone in our community. Vote Nikki Bascome, please. Thank you.
I would like to leave you all with a thought tonight that I am a current high school administrator. I'm not on the outside looking in, I'm on the inside looking out. I roll up my sleeves every day and I report to work no later than 6:15 a.m. until I'm at the basketball games, I'm at the football games, I'm in IEP meetings, I'm in 504 meetings, and I am fighting for student rights, parent rights every day. I know what it's like to go into a building, a school building, and not feel safe. I work in Onslow County, and we did have a student to get stabbed at the Northside High School. We also had a shooting that happened at the beginning of the year with one of our other students within the county. This is a time that you need somebody on the board who's experienced not what I've read and not what I've seen on WWY, but what I'm in every day. So vote for Dr. Kimberly McDuffie Murphy. I am an educator, a current educator for education.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you to Rule and Katie for helping work this event tonight. And thank you to each and every one of you for coming and listening to all 5 of your great candidates running for the Board of Education. I want to leave you all with a story in conclusion. I was having a conversation with a superintendent and a board member from another school district here in North Carolina, both conservative actually, but they said this: the right choice is a one-time choice made on a student's educational journey. But the best choice is a continuous choice that we make each and every day to ensure a student has the opportunity to achieve success. When elected, I look forward to making New Hanover County Schools the best choice now and the best choice then for all of our students. For more information about my campaign, you can visit aubreyforschools.com. But my name's Aubrey Tuell, and I ask for your vote on March 5th.